This program is brought to you by thepodcastfactory.com.
Canine Crew, it's time to just sell the damn thing. Doberman Dan is revealing his contrarian formula for getting a rush of new customers, building your business faster, and making the highest possible profits. Go to justsellthedamnthing.com to get your copy today.
Prepare yourself for the uncensored, nothing held back, no BS reality of how business and life really work. Doberman Dan is off the chain.
Welcome back to another episode of Off the Chain with Doberman Dan. I am Doberman Dan, and with me as always is Mike Garth, Joe Nation, aka Joe Nathan, real name Jonathan. How's it going, Jonathan?
Dude, I don't know. Are you going to admit to this on the podcast that there is a video of this file somewhere hidden deep? Where? In a treasure trove in the nights? Or where can we find it, you think?
Yeah, this is a first. We've never done video. Now, we've talked about this, though, right? Show what you're drinking. This is a coincidence. Show the label.
40. Oh, wait. Here.
Okay. And
oh, dear.
This episode sponsored by Perrier Water. Or as we used to say in Barberton, Ohio, Pierre water. You drinking that there Pierre water, that overpriced stuff? Yeah, have never done video. We talked about it. And that idea got shot down really quickly because like on most of my podcasts, my video would consist of this. That's what people would say. Or worse yet, I'm so vain.
Oh, yes.
I probably think this song is about me, but it'd be like, it was just totally blow the whole gig, man. Everybody thinks I spitball those things.
Worse, if your dog shows up and then people know you're not really Doberman Dan. That's the one I'm waiting for.
We that'll blow my street cred. We can't have that.
Tell Bob. So we have a guest here, Bob. What kind of dog do you think Doberman Dan would have?
Well, based on the name, I would say he wants everyone to think he has a Doberman, but I'm going to go with a teacup poodle.
Close.
You're pretty darn close. Hold on a
There it is.
Well, there we go.
It's a Shih Tzu. All 12 pounds of him. Actually, it's probably like 9 pounds now that he had a haircut.
No, man.
Look at the camera. In my defense, I did have a Doberman. And my wife talked me into getting this Shih Tzu, which I didn't want. And anyway, when the Doberman passed away a few years ago, this guy's like not left my side. He's literally always right there.
Wow.
So, but I did have a Doberman. So we should introduce Bob, a fellow podcast factory brother. An interesting story. So tell us about yourself.
What do you want to know? I mean, there's all kinds of different ways we could thread this one.
Dan, ask him where he just came back from and what he was looking for.
So where were you? Where did you just come back from, and what were you doing and looking for?
So I was in India for a little bit earlier last month, or middle of last month. I was in India for a couple of weeks. I was there for 8 days of total silence to just sit in one spot under the direction of a guru who was running a meditation retreat program. And my search, it sort of became the culmination of a lifelong search for me, for truth. I've always been trying to understand what's really at the bottom of things. And what's odd for me is that the culmination came not because I became an enlightened being, but I realized that truth is not something I could ever own. I can only be in touch with it because it's so much bigger than me. And so I walked away with a way of being in touch with it, if I'll just nourish that. How
cool. This took a turn I didn't expect because I was just on your site at liberateaman.com. But let me, since this seems to be show and tell day today, hold on a second. Let me go grab some.
Oh, goody.
So I don't know how well you'll be able to see this. Do any of these guys look familiar. It's
There's,
got a glare, so you probably won't be able to see them.
I can see Yuktesvar and Yogananda. I don't know the names of the third one, but there's Jesus, there's Babaji, and there's what's his name? Lahiri Mahasaya, right?
Exactly. So we got, Lahiri Masaha, Babaji, Jesus. I mean, like everybody in the West knows that one. Lord Krishna.
There you go.
Paramahansa Yogananda, and his guru was Sri Swami Yukaswar.
Mm-hmm.
So we might have some things in common, although I'm on a relatively new path.
Oh, okay. I read the autobiography of a yogi when I was in my 20s, and I've read it several times since then. So really, it was a really good book for me.
Yeah, I read that recently, probably just within the past few months. That was a game changer for me.
In what way?
And it, been looking for truth my whole life too, but not finding it going about it the wrong way. So like I was a cop for 12 years, okay, and I kept looking for truth in the world, like trying to find what makes sense, and then uncovering all the yucky stuff, the corruption and the illusions and the delusions and the BS we're being fed to try to control us, basically. And I thought that was the search for truth. And that apparently that wasn't what I was looking for, because that was never satisfying. In fact, it was the exact opposite of satisfying. It was like just depressing and leaving one hopeless, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I had an experience. You could call it maybe an engineered near-death experience, although I didn't intend it to be that. It was just looking to try to solve a 3-decade problem with post-traumatic stress disorder. But in the process of that, I had what I guess the way I refer to it is an engineered NDE. And that kind of opened my eyes. And then for some reason, I just saw that book, Autobiography of a Yogi. I've been hearing about it for years, but there it was at the bookstore. And I thought, like, I got to read this. And so, that's what got me to finally look into meditation, even though people have been, talking about that for years. Is my audio okay, Jonathan?
Yeah, you sound good.
Okay, this big ass mic is like blocking the camera, but that's probably a good thing. We should put it where it blocks my face.
It's that. Like your Batman mask,
like that. So yeah, interesting. I mean, like, wow, I didn't expect this. I kind of thought we were going to talk about liberate a man, but this is great too. I'm open to talk about whatever you want to talk about.
They're connected, man. The way to liberate a person from any kind of addiction is to get them to see the truth of who they really are at the deepest level. Then the compulsion goes away. So
and so that's what you do. Would you mind giving us the backstory of, like, tell us where you came from, what you do for a living, what you've done for a living, and what you're doing now with liberateaman.com.
What I've done for a living would be a long list of things. So we won't go down that path. But yeah, ultimately, I was addicted to pornography for 18 years. Started as a teenager. And I know that there's some argument in the world about whether that's a real addiction or not a real addiction. And we could talk about that because there's some deep myths that need to be busted around that topic. But basically, I was stuck. I didn't want to be looking at it, but I couldn't stop using it. And some people would think, well, it's okay, you're normal, you're a kid. But I didn't want it and I couldn't control it. And I felt horrible about it for a long time. I just thought, well, maybe there's just something wrong with me. And that went on for about 15 years. And then in 2009 was when I heard the term addiction in relation to pornography. And that was the first time I was like, holy cow, there's other people that are really struggling with this. This is like actually a thing. But by then, my marriage I was suicidal. Like I had been like shoplifting, video game addictions, like all kinds of stuff. Like it wasn't just this. And I was in deep depression. I was in the middle of graduate school for painting and drawing, which which is the most depressing graduate school I think I could ever recommend anyone going to, because you just sit in a cubicle all day long and like make stuff out of your head. And then once a week, the teachers come in and are like, what are you thinking? Why are you doing this? What are you trying to accomplish? Not a good idea. So this painting behind me is one of many that I've done over the years. I don't know if you can see it very well. Sky, earth, like cloth and stuff like that. So.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. When you change the angle of the camera, I could see it better. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was there, and I was in Seattle, which is not the best place to have suicidal tendencies. Super depressing. And I was in a spot where I was just lost. Spiritually, I was lost. I didn't know who or what God was, if there was a he, if he was connected to me in any way, shape, or whatever. I was lost. My relationship, I didn't know how to connect with women, because my experience with pornography, whether you think it's good or bad, had trained my consciousness and my mind to look at women a certain way, to size them up, to assess them based on their merits visually and whether or not they could produce a certain pleasurable experience for me. I ended up treating other human beings that way, not necessarily for pleasure, but just as objects, a means to an end. And I couldn't connect with people on a very deep level. My kids, as a dad, I was not totally present. I was constantly like trying to help myself feel better in all kinds of different ways, deep philosophical conversations and not being at home and whatnot. And I would kind of explode in anger at them from time to time. I wasn't a very well-adjusted human being. On the outside, people would have said I was a good little Christian boy. On the inside, I was suffering. I was miserable. And so we moved from there to Arizona because I had an opportunity to start up a martial arts school, which is another tangent we can go down. And I ran a kung fu school for a number of years. I've been studying martial arts since I was 8. And in the middle of that, I started like looking for answers to get out of this addictive pattern in my life. And everybody but said the same thing, that addiction is a disease, that it's permanent, that there's no way out of it. And that the best you're really going to be able to do is on a spiritual side, you're either going to pray and read scriptures and try and feel close to God, and that's going to help you fight it and fight it for the rest of your life and keep it at bay. Or on the sort of counseling, psychological side, you're going to cope with it and manage it and like just deal with what's there. And I got fed up because I was tired of society telling me that because of some stupid decisions I made as a 14-year-old, that for the rest of my life, I was hosed. Like there was no way out. And I was just like, look, I read in scriptural texts all over the place that miracles are possible, that it's possible to leave stuff behind. So I don't care if you think that because I've seen something, I can't get it out of my brain. This would be relevant to anybody dealing with PTSD too. That because I have an addiction, that there's no way to actually leave it behind and be free of it, that I'm going to have to fight it. I just done. And because nobody had an answer, and I had searched across, not the whole globe, obviously, but like definitely I'd flown places. I'd done like weird, odd seminars. I'd met Russian spies in the backwoods of Canada and had them like knife me and all kinds of weird stuff to try and find my way out of this. And like, I'd done all kinds of stuff, spent tens of thousands of dollars trying to find a solution, and nothing worked. I had found some tools here and there and nothing worked. So I was like, fine, I'm just going to have to go on whatever kind of inspiration, revelation, insight that I'm getting. And I'm going to have to figure this one out on my own. And as ideas came, and some of them were not good ones, but as ideas came, and I just, because I was so desperate, went at it, I figured out a way to piece together everything I'd learned, so that I went through this process in a very brief period of time. And on the other side of it, I literally deleted all those 18 years of stuff in my brain, didn't come back anymore. I wasn't like before my wife would leave home and there was a computer in the room. And even if I wasn't looking at pornography, I was always battling it. Like, but I could just go like have a good time for a little bit. And I got an opportunity, and that went away. The fear of it went away. I mean, like everything changed. And I just sat there in this new kind of freedom for a little while and thought, okay, cool. I figured something happened. And then a couple of weeks later, I was driving down the road and I was getting off the freeway at the US 60 there in Arizona, like the sun, Arizona, right? Sun's glinting off of the windshield. And I'm slowing down to stop at the light before I turn onto Gilbert Road. I was coming home from Arizona State University where I was teaching. And this voice just passed through my whole body. It wasn't like an audible voice. It was like just a reverberation. And it just said, Bob, Just want you to know you're healed and you're not an addict anymore. Never introduce yourself as one again. Like, it's very clear words. And
wow,
somehow that voice was connected in my mind to the name Jesus Christ. Now, I don't know how or in what way. I don't know how that worked, but somehow those two ideas connected for me. And all that really came out of it was I knew I had been free, but that this experience helped me see that that actually had happened, and that the power that had actually freed me was something deeper than what I had done. That what I did was just open up a space for that to happen. So I didn't do anything with it for a while. And then some years later, some mom came to me freaking out because she was like, oh, my son, my ex just showed him some pornography on the computer. I was busy teaching martial arts. I was trying to like start up a coaching business or whatever, you know, around just like cool stuff that I learned over the years. And she said, yeah, I don't know what to do. She was a counselor. She's like, he's going to be stuck with this for life. And now my ex has ruined him. And I was like, I don't think that that's the case. So I told her my story briefly. And she's like, well, would you work with my son? He's 12. I was like, sure, I'll try it out. So we met in a park because we were both out of town. So we met in a park, and I took him for like 45 minutes and explained some things to him, had him go through some processes. And at the end of it, he was crying and there were boogers running out of his nose and all kinds of stuff. And he left, and I was like, I hope that worked. So like some months later, I called her up just to check on him. She's like, he's been great since that day. Never had a problem since.
No kidding.
I was like, oh, okay. And so, you know, I started helping people here and there. And then maybe a couple years later, I had a coach just ripped me a new one about what I was trying to do for a business. And was like, dude, just tell me. This is in front of like 500 really amazing business owners. And he's like, just tell me what you know so well that anywhere on the planet, you could talk to anyone on the planet, even the Queen of England, and you could just tell it straight up and know that you know what you're talking about, even if they argued. And I was like, well, I know fatherhood and pornography addiction, like that one. And he was like, well, what? That sounds to me like a unique selling proposition, my friend. And I was like, fatherhood and pornography. Yeah, that could be cool. But he just reamed me a new one and said, look, you're trying to solve petty problems for people. This is a huge problem. And people are taking their lives because of it. People's family life is ending because of it, especially in heavily religious communities. And if you really know a way out to be totally 100% done with it, you need to go help people. And so he said, you have 3 days to put up a video where you throw yourself under the bus in front of the world and get used to it. Nobody's going to talk to you because you're going to be the porn guy. But just put yourself out there and start signing up people and getting them help. And I didn't have a system. I just knew what had worked for me. And so I was scared of him, right? He was intimidating. He's all get out. And so I was like, okay. And so 3 days later, I had a video up. It's the first video that I have some of the people watch when they're coming to talk to me, and it lays out my story. After they've signed up for a chat, they can see it. I did a couple others in the next week where my wife got on and talked for 20 minutes about her side of things. We started helping people. And then it took, the first guys were just like intrepid, like, well, whatever, I'm suffering, you know something, tell me what to do. And so it took a few months before we found out what were the essential pieces, what were pieces that were just unique to me. And then all of a sudden the system started showing up where we could realize what was the real issue and move on from there. So since then, we've taken over 150 people through the process and had some tremendous, amazing results, helping them see what's really causing the addictive behavior, solving that, and then giving them the skills needed to be able to live a life that's invincible to it, not because they have to fight it, but because they're so dang happy that there's no room to go chasing happiness in another way.
To me, that's fascinating on a bunch of different levels, but it's contrarian because they, in finger quotes, the status quo, their take on this is that it's a disease. You're stuck with it. You can like fight it, but you're never cured. You know, all the 12-step program. Listen, I'm probably, I know enough to be dangerous.
Oh, good.
I know people who've been involved in them.
It's another D. I mean, dangerous Doberman Dan.
Like a little dog.
Triple D's. You know, but that's like that's their thing. That's their stance. You're never cured. Like you manage it. And actually a friend of mine who did deal with drug addiction and went to a 12-step program, he hates it now. Like he got out of it because of that message.
Oh man, just as we were getting into the juicy 12-step talk, we got to cut it short. You know what time it is, K9 Crew. This interview is over for now, but next week we'll be back with part 2, talking to Bob Gardner. We'll see you guys then. Thank you for tuning in. K9 Crew, before you run off, I want to remind you, Doberman Dan has set up an off-the-chain hotline. Call in, tell us you love us. It's even better if you tell us you hate us. It doesn't matter what you say. All you have to do is call in, leave a message. The number is 321-424-6043. Again, off-the-chain hotline, 321-424-6043.
This is the podcastfactory.com.